for wherever you may be, especially our panelists today, Dr. Amir Arif and Dr. Kachlan. A little bit of introduction on these great people. Dr. Amir Arif is starting his second year as a podiatric physician at a Northeast private clinic in Illinois. He is a graduate of the Beaumont Trenton, or now is known as Coral Trenton Podiatry Program, Podiatry Residency in Trenton, Michigan, a very surgical heavy program. And Dr. Enes Kachlan is starting his PGY 3 year at VA Puget Sound Health in Seattle, Washington. I was lucky enough as a student to rotate with them, and I learned a lot from these guys. And I'm humbled to call these guys my mentors, and they've guided me through much as a student. And now, hopefully, they can help me, and along with all these other members joining us today, as we make the transition to student to resident. So, with that, I'll start with Dr. Arif on if he has any, introductory remarks about making that transition.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So I mean, this is like a very broad topic, right? I mean, I know me and Luqmaan could talk hours and hours and hours on this nonstop. But I guess if you had to summarize everything in a couple of minutes, be a sponge. Honestly, it is very overwhelming at first, right? I'm sure everyone's heard that phrase that you have to drink from a fire hose. You literally do. It's theoretically, it is a lot of information. It is very, very different from medical school. You've learned the knowledge, but now you kind of have to implement it, right? And depending on what attendings you're working with, depending on their expectations, it can be overwhelming at times. But just be a sponge, willing to be receptive, and just willing to learn. If you have those three qualities, you'll make it out amazing. And it's typically the first 2-3 months that can be overwhelming. But once you pass that step, then it's pretty much on cruise control after that. But we'll talk in a lot more detail if we need to. But that's pretty much the beginning. But so if you guys have any specific questions, we can definitely attack that in more detail too, for sure. Anas, your turn.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Based on the topic, I'm assuming most of you all starting residency soon. So congrats on match, and we hope you find this session useful. When I was a student, actually, I rotated with Amir myself, and also consider him as a mentor. And it's very interesting to see how your growth is from the time you're a student to resident, and you'll see yourself, grow through all these stages of residency from first year till third year, and it's a journey.
Starting off the questions, this being the Muslim Podiatry Network, going from different programs. I know when I rotated at Trenton, I was very lucky to be. A lot of the attendings that we worked with were Muslim. And it was very easy to step up for Salah and things like that. But where I'm going now, where I'll be starting, it's in rural Illinois. I think the only other Muslim person on staff is a cardiovascular doctor, but none of the attendings I work with or any of the other residents are Muslim. So in those types of environment where you may be the only Muslim in that entire program itself, how do you go about maintaining your Muslim identity, making sure you don't miss your Salah and things like that? Because inevitably you're going to come across times where your Salah is going to conflict with surgical timings, Jummah. It won't be as clean as, having 30 minutes while you're on your lunch hour. So do you have any advice about going about matters such as that?
Fantastic question, obviously, right? That's a very good question. I, like you said, was spoiled because director was Muslim. It was a lot of Muslim doctors there, so it was easier for me because I didn't have to continuously explain it. But educating your director, educating the attendings you work with, that showing that obviously German specific cannot be compromised, and that is a time slot that you have to commit to, right? Say, hey, from Friday, whether it's 1 to 2 or 12 to 1, depending on your time zone, and like, hey, I just need to make Jummah. If it's a clinic, can I be excused for an hour, and I'll come right back, right? Obviously, if you're in cases, that's different, right? Obviously, I don't expect you guys to just drop case and go and then come back, unless you have Muslim doctors that expect you to do that, which I did actually, like a couple of them. But again, that's very few and in between. But like I said, Where you're going, Dr. Gumbine is very, very understanding. As long as you kind of just explain to him the importance of what's going on and tell them that, hey, you're not trying to skip out on anything, but you'll come in, you'll work an extra hour, or kind of make up it any way you can to show that they know that you're serious and you're not actually trying to just get away with clinic, because that's what they sometimes will think, hey, they're just trying to get away with work and they're just using religion. That's not the case, right? And you kind of have to kind of tell them that, even for your regular salon, like, hey, and even with summer, it's really easy, right? Because us are so late in the day, and then there's such a long time. So whether you're lunch or anything, it's pretty easy to do that. But obviously, when the time's really close or during the winter times, just let them know, hey, excuse me for 5 minutes. I'm gonna go pray really quickly. And that's something that I did with all my attendings. Every single of my attendings knew that. Some of them were annoyed about it, but they can't say no, right? But that's something that you just have to let them know. Let them know that's something that you're serious about. That's something that you want, and they will abide to it as long as you don't take advantage of it. If you abuse it, they'll take it away. They'll take it away from you immediately. But as long as you're sincere about it, I don't see an issue with it. But Anas, I mean, you can also chime in. What's your experience on that?
Unfortunately, too, my director is Muslim, so definitely understanding. I would say if you're starting out first, find where the chapel is or where the praying area is in your program, and that's going to be your go-to spot. I also find that organizing my day around prayer time, that helps me a lot. You know, it helps productivity. And in terms, you know, sometimes the salah time overlap with cases, so I don't want to give religious advice, but if you have a case, obviously, like Amir was saying, you can't like drop surgery and go out. So yeah, also if you need to pray during clinic, usually the staff is pretty accommodating about, you know, you can talk to one of the nurses like, hey, can I use this room to pray real quick? And usually they'll be okay with that. If you're at a big hospital system, you'll have a better experience in terms of finding areas to pray and other Muslims to pray with. If you're at a smaller hospital, that might be more difficult, but I don't see anyone having an issue with it.
To add on to that, actually, I mean, he had a great point in the sense that most hospitals, more than likely, unless it's a very like community out in nowhere areas, there usually is a Juma in the hospital or something you can actually accommodate. Even if you find 3-4 doctors that will pray Juma and kind of coordinate that, that can definitely be, if you can't leave the hospital or there's no masjid near the hospital or the clinic you guys are at, it's not hard to coordinate it. Luqmaan, you are in a very specific situation where you are literally in the middle of nowhere. So in that specific situation, I'm sorry, but 95% of the rest of you are more likely in areas that have at least 5 to 10 Muslims, like minimum. Like the hospitals that I do attendantship right now, all of them minimum have, I think, 20, 30 Muslims, if not a lot more. I'm also in Chicago, so it's not fair. But yeah, but I think majority of you should be able to coordinate that, and it's just, you guys, it does take some effort and time if there isn't an established German time there now. But it is easy to coordinate it, and most hospitals won't even like, they'll be happy to provide you a space and everything like that if you also reached out to them too.
Yeah, great answers. I know specifically for me going out where I'm going out, that was a very unique situation. If I was in the Chicago metro area, it wouldn't be a entirely concern of mine. But you know, I think this may affect more people than we realize. You know, being the only one in that area may be kind of intimidating. You know, just because you have to speak out for yourself and stand for that. So those were great answers. Thank you. So moving on to like more of like the day-to-day work type life. So starting that transition, you know, day one as a resident, if you're starting on service, you know, how do you not become overwhelmed with all the responsibility suddenly on your shoulders? You know, as a student, you go from having very little responsibility, no one really expects you to do anything, but now all of a sudden you're responsible for call, you're responsible for seeing patients, and you're responsible for charting. How do you make that transition? I know it's not going to happen on day one, but how do you slowly start taking those steps to becoming proficient in a clinical environment where now your actions have consequences?
So my advice would be to over prepare, right? To obviously, if someone says, hey, I recommend you getting to the clinic 5, 6 a.m. for the first 2 months because you need to Obviously, chart all your inpatients, whether it's 10, 15, 20, however many inpatients you guys see, and obviously do everything, right? You want to make sure that you know what's going on. Is there any consult on task, the labs, any radiographic imaging, whatever it is, right? Whether it's in fact, more than likely, there's probably infections, some trauma here and there, but be over prepared, right? If they say get there at 6 o'clock, be there at 5. At least spend that extra hour learning how to use Epic or whatever EMR you guys use, or learning how to just like if they say, hey, did this patient get labs? You wrote it all down. Obviously, don't expect to do that all through residency, but it's going to come a lot more quicker when you know how to use the EMR, when you know how to use your phone, when you know how to use all that stuff, and you know how each attending has their expectations. But because all the attendings I worked with were all very different. Some didn't really care to as much detail. Some wanted every little teeny tiny detail, and they'll ask you the most simplest question, like most detailed questions, just to see if you did your research or not, right? If you've done your due diligence for the patient or not. So are there antibiotics? What kind of antibiotics? Why aren't they on this antibiotic? It's kind of more so for you to learn on the job, right? So the reason why they're doing that is not to kind of just be mean to you. They're doing that so you actually know why you're doing what you're doing. Is it overwhelming? Absolutely. But I would say over prepare in the beginning, and then as you get more and more comfortable, then you can start coming more regular hours. Then at that point, if you're more prepared in the beginning, everything will come a lot easier. Obviously, ask for help. Do not, if you're not sure about anything, always ask your senior residents, ask your attendings, whatever relationship you guys have, whatever culture is essentially in that area. For me, I would just go directly to my attendings. But hey, I was thinking this, this, and this. How would you like to approach? Some of them would be like, figure it out. So some of them would actually tell me. And then if they tell me to figure it out, I would try to figure it out. If not, then ask my senior residents, but hey, what the heck do I do? And then essentially they would kind of help you. And more than likely, most residents are usually nice enough. But that's my advice.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and also say when you're first starting, the first 3 to 4 weeks, put it as a timeline. During that time, focus more on knowing the hospital system you're in and absorbing the environment you are in. You're not expected to produce the first month as a new resident. Everyone is going to know you're a new resident. You'll feel like you have kind of like weight onto your shoulder, like to prove yourself and work hard. But I'd say take it easy a bit at the beginning and do your best to see what's going on, learning the technical aspects. The MR, you have to know to use the MR before you can do any work. And majority of programs when you're first starting, they're going to have you body call or work with either a second or third year resident. So that's the time to really learn. You need to really absorb what they're doing and help them out, see what they're doing. That's how you're going to learn. I feel like that first month is going to set you up for the rest of the year. So when you're working with a senior residents, take some notes so you don't forget later, and you can always reference the stuff they're doing, especially like if you're seeing MD consults. The first few, like either fractures you see, first diabetic foot infections, which is the most common things you're going to see. By time you're going to work them out automatically. You don't have to think, oh, what labs do I have to order? What imagings do I need? Patient can get an MRI. What should I order now? This stuff comes automatically with time, but you need to be able to develop a stepwise approach. And the way to get that stepwise approach is from the senior resident initially. After that first month goes by, now the expectations are higher. And what you build on that last month will set you up for success later. If you need to reference something, then you have the notes from that month. And if you need help, obviously, you need to ask. It's important to know also, besides being a residence for your own learning, you are part of the hospital system. You are employed by that hospital. So that goes again to knowing the system around you and realizing what your responsibilities are towards the department. What kind of work you're supposed to do by the end of the day that has to be completed, and towards the hospital as well. Ensure you're following guidelines.
So I know you mentioned expectations, as of coming in the first month, everyone's going to give you a lot of wiggle room, a lot of slack. but as time goes on, you're expected to start taking on more and more responsibility. I think this boils down to, like, as an incoming resident, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? You're 2 months in, but say you maybe still be struggling with call. You may be calling on your senior chief to be like, hey, like, I'm seeing this, and you've already seen it a few times on call, but you're not ordering the right things. You're missing things here and there. How do you reassure yourself that, I am making progress, I am where I'm supposed to be, and I don't have to worry about, failing out middle of my first year or my second year?
I say the biggest thing, you gotta trust yourself and be confident in what you're doing, because everyone started somewhere. So you might be looking at a second or third year residents and you're like, oh wow, how are they doing that? But in reality, everyone started somewhere. So you just gotta be confident in yourself and your abilities. That's the way how to overcome that, and realize that everyone is still learning as well. No one knows everything, so no one is like better than the other person. It just depends on you on learning what you can and doing the best you could.
It's also keeping yourself accountable, right? So if you're doing something for 2, 3 months and you're still having difficulty, then you kind of have to ask yourself, okay, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? How can I get better, right? And that's where what Anas was saying is being confident about it, right? If you guys are you guys passionate and actually want to take everything like seriously, then you'll seriously ask that question after 1 or 2 times, right? So you have a neck fascia case that comes in. Obviously, the first time you're like, hey, what do I do? Is it surgical emergency? Obviously, it is, but like kind of like you know the process and how to kind of go through everything, right? Are you ordering a CT? Essentially, why are you ordering a CT and all those informations, right? But what's it called? But it's kind of like you said, just keeping yourself accountable. And if you do that and you kind of know why you didn't do what you did last time and why you have to do it now, you're only going to grow more, right? And there's so much information, so much new knowledge coming at you every single day, because you're going to see all these different pathologies that you probably didn't even think of, and you read it once in med school and didn't think you'd ever see it, but you're definitely going to see it in residency. And every time you do that, you got to teach yourself, right? It's a lot of self-educating, right? When you guys pull these long hours in residency, doesn't mean you're done. When you come home, you guys have to prepare, whether it's next case, at the next cases next day, or you gotta round on patients that you don't know the pathology, right? They might have some crazy derm condition, they might have some crazy infection you've never seen, they might have they might have PG, right? But so yeah, it's just keeping yourself accountable, making sure that you are 100% giving it your all, and as long as you do that, there should be you guys will do just fine, inshallah.
Wanted to add, if there's anyone from the audience that wants to ask a question, feel free. I know that people submitted questions on the registration form. I was going to wait till the end for that, but if anyone has anything they'd like to add where our panelists added onto, please feel free to raise your hand. But building off what Amir said about that, sorry,
No, I
Amir,
was
you
just
were
saying
saying?
this is a completely informal panel. So if anyone, feel free to cut us off. Feel free to ask us any specific questions. This is for your benefit. So any way we can help you guys out, just let us know, inshallah.
For sure. Inshallah, I want to add to that, especially when you're starting out, you'll be surprised that the practical things you're doing in residency sometimes differ from what you learned in school, or the book answer to something. Even when we have students rotating, some of them ask them, oh, what do you do about this, for example, and they'll give me the book answer and I'll be impressed, like, oh yeah. But in practicality, you're not actually, that's not what you're implementing. So you need to see kind of like what different attendings are doing and pick up on that technicality, and realize that there are two right answers for some things. The way you manage a certain patient, the way you manage infection, the way you manage an open fracture. It really depends on the attending and their training. So good thing about residency, you're going to be working with a lot of people. You're going to like some methods, you're not going to like some. So you need to be able to, as Amr was saying, be a sponge and adapt to different things you're doing. And later you can start, in practice, developing your own ways of doing it. But there's always that standard of practice you want to make sure you're following.
Building off that, being a sponge and, coming home from a long day at clinic, then also, studying for the next cases, what are the proper ways, like, as a student, you read ortho bullets, read these things that don't take too much time, but now as first years, you're given the knife, you have to cut, and you're going to be responsible for what you're cutting. So how do you guys go about preparing? Amir, you being a second year attending at this point, Anas, you being a third year chief going in, how do you guys, what did you guys start with PGY 1 year to what you guys are doing now? And what would you recommend? Say, something now that you wish you knew PGY 1 year when you're prepping for cases.
So you're always gonna learn, right? I mean, even now, like for example, like my partners will do something differently, and like you said, there's 5 different ways to do surgery, right? That doesn't mean that they're all wrong, right? There's different methods and different ways of doing it. But to specifically answer that question, I actually learned this at KSB when I was doing my rotations there many years ago. And what Dr. Gambiner said was, every new surgery you haven't done, open up a sheet, write it down from step 1 to step however many steps that this case takes, right? Start from pre-op. What do I need to get ready for this room, right? From C-arm to whatever specific equipment you need. Do you need hardware? Do you not need hardware? Do you need labs? Do you need micropathology, etc., whatever? Then, all right, what do you start with in terms of incision? Where are you making incision? Why are you making incision? And that's the biggest question, why, right? Why are you doing everything? And if you don't have the answer to why, then should you be doing that or no, right? And kind of going step by step by step. And that's something that I tried to implement on every new case that I tried doing through residency. And then I would ask my attendants that I did for surgery. Some were more receptive of it. Some really didn't care. But hey, whatever surgery I haven't done is okay if I call you a day or two before surgery and kind of like walk through the plan, making sure that we're on the right step. And believe it or not, if they see you take more initiative, they'll let you they'll give you skin time a lot more earlier because they know that you actually care and you're not coming in blind to the case, right? You come into the case and you have no idea what's going on, the likelihood of them letting you get the knife right away and letting you actually do work is minimal. Like, I work with residents right now, and if they don't contact me the day before, likelihood of them doing more in the case is not as much. Whereas some residents will call me 2 to 3 days before, ask me for all the imaging, ask me what the plan is, ask me what approach do you want to take, what to read on, what not to read on. More than likely, they'll do most of my case, obviously. But like, it all depends, right? But that's what I would say, is kind of start from that. And then if you keep doing that, you not only are you studying, you're also studying for boards because you know why you're doing what you're doing for each and every single case, but you're also learning. And then also kind of reflect after every case, right? Okay, what did I do? How could I have done something better? Or what should I have not done? What could I've done to kind of get better in practice? I'm still doing it, right? Because as an attending, you don't have your senior residents, you don't have attendings to kind of go back to. So I was like, man, like, I should have done an ACON on that one. Why didn't I do an ACON on that one? Because on Lunacy Arm it looked good, but then when I looked clinically, patient could have done better with an ACON. Now there's a little bit of valgus rotation of that proximal phalanx, But or like an ankle fracture. Why did I use that plate instead of that plate? Right. So it's the mindset, right? And it's the constant learning. The second you think you don't have to learn anymore, that's game over. But yeah, that's my mindset. Sorry, I keep babbling.
I think to be able to do good surgery, you have to, the night before, 2 days before, you have to be able to repeat it in your head 3 times what the steps you're doing. So during the surgery, when you're actually doing the surgery, you have to be already 3 steps in advance you already know what you're doing next. And the way to do that is by studying for the case, knowing the steps, and memorizing the steps beforehand. This becomes easier because the procedures do become repetitive, but there's always unique cases, so you always need to be ready. And especially early on, you're learning anything from a toe amp to an ankle fracture, so you have to be able to repeat the steps in your head before the surgery. I like watching videos the day before surgery. I use MANS. My hospital has access to MANS, so I read the steps and then I watch a video or two, and then YouTube also usually have some videos. I know the system you're using, whether it's like Arthrax, Stryker, Paragon, whatever system you're using, they always have video on the device. You have to be able to know the steps to use that device and kind of skim through the manual, go through the manual. If you're using a certain screw, you know what size drill do you need? Because you're the surgeon, you need to be able to ask from the scrub tech exactly what you need. You're not using a 3.5 screw, you need a 2.7 drill. So that's for 2.7 drill. Make sure you're holding the right instrument. And the way to do that is really preparing beforehand, knowing what instruments you're going to use, knowing the steps of the surgery, and having a visual in your mind of what you're doing. That helps the case flow really good. Very important to pre-op, having everything ready in the OR. As the resident, that's your responsibility. Sometimes you'll have students that are helpful, sometimes not. You want to make sure everything is there that makes the day go smooth.
I mean, that's a great point to add on. Also, those reps can be your friends. They can be a curse, but they can also help a lot. Like they have videos on everything, right? And I agree, videos are awesome. I love videos. I do it all the time too, especially for the bigger cases, right? Especially new products. There's always new products coming out, right? And to advance what medicine, you're more than likely going to try new things, right? Before it was just regular bunnies. Now it's all about MIS. So there's videos on all of that, right? And then these reps, most residencies have cadaver labs. Most of them set up labs with these companies. So cases that you guys are interested in doing, cases that you want to practice on, tell them, hey, I want to do the new MIS lapidus on here. I want to do the new distal osteotomy. I want to do the TAR, whatever it is, whatever you guys are into, you know. But you guys can use your reps as friends to kind of accommodate that and do that for you guys. I'm sure that you guys have some kind of agreement with them. For us, it was once a quarter with different companies, and then we did it with three different companies. So we were able to get a cadaver almost every 6 to 8 weeks. So that time, and then in each cadaver, you can easily do 3 to 4 procedures, you know, because like you could do one ankle, one hind foot, one midfoot, and then one forefoot. And that way you guys practice everything you want. And that way you can spend your time. You can ask your senior residents for questions. If some attendings are willing to come and help, they more than likely will come and actually teach you why you do everything. And you can mess up because it's a cadaver, right? You'd rather mess up on a cadaver than an actual human being. And then working on suturing, working on your hand techniques, that's important, right? The more agile you are, the more delicate you are, the more you know why you're doing, that's important, right? So get the suture pads even now, start working on it, because if you could start suturing really well already, then that's what attendings will likely probably let you start doing right away, right? Is to start suturing. They'll probably start doing skin. Oh, this guy could do that. All right, start subacute closure. Okay, well, he knows how to subacute closure. All right, why don't you do this osteotomy for me? You know, and kind of just proving them. You will, for infection cases, depending on the program, will get to do a lot in the beginning, but not every program is like that. You kind of have to earn it, right? And if every opportunity you have, if you take advantage of it and you capitalize on it, the likelihood of you doing more skin procedures within your first year is very high.
Yeah,
Amir, you mentioned
definitely when you're starting out now, you want to make sure you're ready to suture day one. That's how you get to do more later. Some attendings will have you skin to skin. Some other attendings you have to build trust with, and the way to do that is closure.
Yeah, Amr mentioned something interesting in the beginning of this question, was that boards. You know, we feel as students, we only think about part 1, part 2, and then part 3 if we haven't taken it yet. But what other board should we be expecting? I know that I didn't know this actually existed, but I believe they're called in-training exams, ITEs. I was exposed to that when I was at your program, and then I never knew they actually existed because they never talked about it in school. So what should be things that should be on your horizon when you're starting out? Things that like mentally, like, okay, I should start preparing for this. How seriously do I have to take these ITE exams? Because I know they're not for real. They're practice exams. Can I blow them off? Do I have to prepare?
1 second, let me just turn it down.
I don't think you should.
Sorry, Maghrib.
Go ahead.
Maghrib just started here. No, okay. So sorry about that. So what I was saying is that yes, boards. So you have in-training exams, right? So every year you will be taking in-training exams for ABFAS. Your first year, your second year, the nice thing about third year is that if you pass any of the 4 in-training exams you take, right? So there's forefoot and rear foot. There is your multiple choice, and then there's your CBPF. So if you pass any of those 4 during your in-training exam that's offered third year, fall of third year, it will count towards board eligibility and board qualification. You do have to pass 2 of both sections to be board qualified. You're not certified, you're board qualified. And what that means is that you have within ABFAS up to 7 years to complete the surgical requirements to be board certified through ABFAS. But keep in mind, hospitals have different requirements. The hospital that I'm currently at, one of the health systems, they only give you 5 years. Some will give you 3 years, depending on which group you're with, or etc. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. How surgically heavy practice are you joining? How much time do you have? Are you starting from scratch? Are you coming in with a full patient load with surgeries from day one? Right. That's a whole different panel that we can do later on. But for you guys, there's 2 technically board certifications that you kind of want to keep an eye out for. ABFAS is the clear cut, probably the biggest one, the most important one. At least most hospitals here in the Chicagoland area recognize ABFAS. I'm with Northwestern Health System and Advocate, and they only recognize ABFAS. They do not recognize ABPM at all. And you have to be board qualified in order to even get surgical privileges at the hospital. But then ABPM is also another semi-big one. It's pretty big in other regions that they do require. So one or either or having both is pretty good. You can opt in to take the in-training exams for ABPM. I don't know, each residency program is different. I personally did not take them, but I know a lot of my friends did. But ABFAS, typically every single residency, I think, is obligated to make sure you do the in-training for that. And then you will have a chance to take the in-training third year, and then that could also count towards qualification if you pass, and it is paid through the program. Unless some programs don't do that, which I don't think that is. But yeah, that's just the broad thing. But in terms of studying, you're studying every day, right? As if you study for earlier cases and you use McGlamory as a reference, you will do just fine. But it's being constant about it, doing board wizards. Their CBPS worked well for me personally. Again, that's another whole panel that we could talk about board prep. But yeah, that's just the broad answer. Any specific question for that?
Anas, did you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, so to reillustrate, basically, we have 2 boards. We have the ABFAS board and the ABPM board. ABFAS being the more major board. To become board qualified in ABFAS, that's your third year. So your first and second years, those counts as an in-training exam. For the other board, the one for the APMA, your 3 years count as in-training exams, and then you become board qualified after residency when you take it as an attendee. Basically, I wouldn't say blow off your in-training exams. Your first year is not as important because you're not gonna have a lot of time to study your first year. You're gonna be basically busy enough learning how to do surgery and learning clinic and learning everything you have to do to go about your day in residency. But that comes with learning. You know, if you're doing a case, you're learning from it. You're seeing patient, you're learning from that. So go with that. Your second year, I would say, start focusing on the in-training exams. I took both board in-training exams for both years, my first and second year, and I found that helpful. It gives you a score, and you can see how your score compares to the average score. You want to be aware of that. And I actually attended a board session from this Muslim group we have. I think it was a couple months ago, and they said the best way to study is to do practice questions for these types of boards. So obviously, everything you're learning and reading is important, but the way to pass boards and do well is through practice questions. So for
That's
those,
a whole different topic, Anas. We're just trying to tell them what's going on,
Yeah, so that's why
Kind
it's
of.
really long if to go into it, but a lot of residency programs offer those, board wizards and other board resources. So start doing those when you can, not too early on, but also not too late.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I didn't mean to open up a can of worms. I just wanted, I didn't know they existed at all. And then I didn't want other residents to be blindsided intern year to figure out something like this. But, moving on to that, I mean, we're kind of wrapping up toward the hour. Some of the big picture things, what have you noticed great interns do? Unless you're a PGY3 now, you have junior residents underneath you. You're a chief resident now. And one of my good friends is joining your program. Amir, you're a chief as well. What have you noticed that separates average interns from great interns?
Um, the ones that are willing to help, right? Because everyone is smart. Obviously, none of you guys would be where you guys are without all the hard work and everything you guys put in, right? But being mindful, being kind of aware of everything, right? Like obviously you guys are putting into work, but say you see one of your co-residents slammed, right? They're on call, they haven't slept for 2 days, they got two other add-ons at two different hospitals that they need to take care of, right? And as a co-resident and as attendings and chief residents, they notice all of this stuff, right? They won't ever mention it. They probably won't even compliment it, but they'll notice it and they will reward you like in the OR and other ways, right? Especially when you're like requesting time off or whatever it is. But kind of being mindful of the situation and not being selfish. Do your thing. Obviously, do as best as you can, but be helpful. Be there for the residency. Be there for your residents because it is a stressful time. It's stressful for everyone when you're as a resident, right? And the expectations are very difficult. But if you go above and beyond and ask and help your senior residents, help your junior residents, even when you guys are second and third years, inshallah. But that goes a long way, right? Like who my junior was, Luqmaan. Like he did that a lot over and over again. Um, one second, I was just reading the question. Yeah. That's a Maqsood Ahmed. That's an interesting question. And board certification, at least here in Chicagoland, um, we cannot get board certification for ABPM. Like we can't get hospital privileges. They'll only allow hospital privileges for ABFAS. And depending on which qualifications you have, they'll give you like that amount of privileges. But I didn't know it was technically illegal. I could look into that more, but I wasn't sure that was a thing. Um, but yeah, going back to what I was saying. What was I saying? Sorry. Yeah, he was helpful from day one, right? Like even as a second year resident, I was like, man, like I have 3 back-to-back cases at 3 different hospitals. Whereas the intern was like, hey, I can help you with one of them. I can see the console, go in, and because I want to learn this. I haven't seen this pathology before, right? Kind of taking initiative, kind of learning, kind of not just doing the bare minimum. If you do the bare minimum, you'll get the residency, you'll pass the residency, but you're not going to be great, right? Taking initiative, trying to constantly want to learn. I think that definitely puts you over the other. Yeah.
I don't see much to add to that. You gotta work hard, and you realize you're working with a lot of personalities in residency, so you also have to be able to work with everyone and be adaptive and be good people too.
What would you guys tell yourself if you could go back in time, talk to your PGY 1 year intern self? What would you tell them? Like, hey, look out for this. Be aware of that type of situation.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, look, man, I blanked out for a second.
Basically, what would you tell yourself if you were starting residency tomorrow? What you know now, what would you tell yourself? Like, just take it one day at a time, or like look at these resources. What advice did you wish you had starting intern year, basically?
One day at a time, man. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Right? It's every day is going to be different. You may think you have a good week, and then next week you get punched in the gut, and you're like, "What the heck did I just go through?" It's just one day at a time, kind of reflecting on that. Think again, it's all about reflecting, right? What did I do? could have done something any better? Was there something that I should have done? There's something I could have done, and kind of just working on that. You keep working on that, and it's the same thing in Islam too, right? Like reflecting on it, you're reflecting on everything, right? That's where muraqabah kind of comes from. But that's again, that's going on, just me going on a tangent. But kind of going there and kind of just learning from your mistakes. Um, that's that's probably the best advice anyone can get is just don't make the same mistake twice. Because if you do that, then attendants can start losing trust in you. And you start losing trust in you, that means that you start you don't get to do more. And then because of that, they won't trust you with their patients because at the end of the day, it is patient care, right? It's not a joke. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say probably the same thing, and don't overthink as well. You're there to learn. Do your best, and you kind of learn from every day. Something I like to do is after each case, I ask the attendee, what feedback they have, and keep doing that, and also remember what each attending preferences are. And the more you follow these preferences, the more you get to do.
Building off that question statement of one day at a time, this is not something more residency related, but kind of life related. How do you manage? Residency is so busy. How do you manage your own family? Like a lot of people at this point in time, they're either like in serious relationships, married, kids. I know, Amr, you had a son during residency. How do you manage all those family relationships and being a resident at the same time?
Honestly, it's all blank to me. No, it's just you just gotta prioritize what's important. Honestly, when you're at work, you gotta do what you gotta do. But obviously, family is important too. You gotta take care of your significant other. Yeah, I did have a kid at the very end of my intern year. So just spend whatever time you can. I used to study with him all the time. He used to be on my lap, and I was just studying for boards. But just time management, right? Obviously, you're obligated to spend time with your significant other, and you got to do that. But also, they also know what you have to go through, right? And that's a lot of communication before you start residency, like knowing that priority, and not I want to say priority, but I want to say like your time commitment is primarily with residency, and then any free time in between that, obviously, you want to do that. So like a lot of times for us, surgery are on Wednesday and Fridays. So sometimes we would have a little less surgeries on Wednesdays. So I would be done earlier. So then those would be the days that I would go and like hang out with the wife, hang out with the kids, and then kind of do that, just take advantage of any free time you get. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays were a busy clinic day. So we knew that we wouldn't plan anything family oriented, family related wise those days. Nice thing about where I went is Friday was always a half day because, like I said, we did have Muslim attending. So they would cut it till Jama and then that was it. Right. So we would always have Friday afternoons and evenings to kind of catch up and take advantage of that time. And then whatever weekends that I wasn't on call, we would plan something, do something, even if it was for a couple hours, even to just study, kind of put some stuff aside, obviously for your dean, for your family. And then for me, it would be coming to Chicago to see my family, go to community events, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I don't have any kids. Don't plan to during residency. I don't know how people will do it. So much respect. But I'm engaged, and it's very fortunate to have supportive fiance and family that they understand. You're going through residency. There's no way around it. Those 3 years, it's a lot of work. You're putting a lot of hours. There's some events you're not going to be able to make it. My way around it is play hard, work hard. So when you're working, you're working. Like that's going to be work hours. You're not going to have much time to do anything around that. But when you do have that time off, whether it's Friday half a day, it's a weekend, you're not on call. That's when you want to disconnect from work and enjoy your time. And then same thing. Then you're back at work. That's going to be your focus. So it's not as much as work-life balance that does not exist during residency, in my opinion, depending where you are. But most residency that does not really apply. It's just about being able to separate your time between the times you're off and the times you're on service. And also, you'll see how in your residency different rotations are more demanding and busier than other rotations. So some programs when you're on off rotation, that would give you some more free time than compared to when you're on service. So recognizing, from your senior residents when is a good time to take some time off, or what rotation is light or heavy, realistically, that's gonna be very helpful.
Okay, I think we're coming close to the top of the hour. I'd like to open up the floor if anyone has any questions they feel that I didn't ask, or they would like any clarifying remarks. We can open up the floor to them. All right. I mean, do our panelists have any closing remarks? I know local time is closing up to 9 o'clock on the East Coast. Is coming close to 10 o'clock, so I know it's getting late now. So I don't want to keep anyone longer than anyone unnecessarily longer. But I think Maqsood had a question.
Assalamualaikum, guys. Yeah, this is the MPN account we use to record. So Maqsood Ahmed is actually Ali Ahmed's dad, so we just use his account. But no, this is Muhammad Junaid Khan. I just wanted to thank Amir and Anas. You guys did, mashallah, a great job. Really happy, excited that we had some new faces sharing this information. Like I said, really, really vouch for what you guys said regards to being Muslim, not shying away from what's obligatory, trying the best you can. The easier it's going to be for future students that become residents, inshallah. And I did want to touch on this hospital board certification thing. Although it is illegal, it technically is illegal for a hospital to write it into their bylaws that you have to have X, Y, or Z board. Hospitals do it anyway. So at that point, if I was an ABPM, whatever, surgeon coming to Chicago, I would have to sue the hospital, and that looks really bad. So that's not really a route you want to take. Sorry,
I'm still learning the process. Yeah, obviously I'm still learning the process too. So like me coming in, I mean I only had ABFAS, I didn't have ABPM, but that was just kind of like what they told us, and they were like, yep, especially Northwestern, they were like, ABPM is not even quote unquote a thing, but like for example, Loyola only accepts ABPM and not ABFAS, so it's weird. So there's a lot of politics here. A lot of politics.
There's a lot of politics. Yeah. So you gave a good answer.
I didn't know it was illegal though. So
yeah. I mean, you gave a good answer. I mean, if you start out with both, like you'll be fine just about everywhere. But yeah, I have a friend. She works at Weil, and she's like, I'm ABPM. I'm not taking a BFAS, and she had to sue the hospital to get in, and that's not a great look. Not a great look. But you do have that avenue if you want to take that. But yeah, I just wanted to chime in and say jazakallah khairan to you, both of you. This was great. Really would love to have you guys back and elaborating on some of the stuff that you guys touched on, inshallah.
Oh, for sure. I'm happy to help. And if there's any specific questions, you guys are more than welcome to reach out. And then we're here to help, right? I truly believe that us Muslims need to help each other out more and be there for one another, because I feel like we don't do as good of a job. And I think this whole MPN concept is amazing, and it's great initiative. So if any way I can help more, please let me know, inshallah.
Before we hop off, I think I saw Bianca with her hand raised, so I don't know if she still has that question. All right. I mean,
can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, my mic is going crazy. But hi guys, I just wanted to know your opinion on, like, I know everyone uses different systems like Epic and other things. Would you say that once the hurdle of just learning how to use the system, that everything is kind of like, all right, smooth sailing, besides the knowing, what to do, what not to do? Like, would you say that's probably one of the biggest hurdles as well, just once you get used to the system itself and knowing how to do XYZ?
I think the easier you know how to use the MR, it's the easier to kind of access everything, right? But in terms of like know what to do, what not to do. That's just kind of protocol, and that's something that you're going to learn while you're in residency. But in terms of being efficient and learning how to use it efficiently, then your time is going to go from an hour to 15 minutes. Like I remember my first month of residency, it took a while. It took me a while to figure out where can I find this, where can I find that, how to do this, how to do that. And it also depends on how well like your senior residents kind of help you and guide you. You guys have dot phrases, you guys have this like um surgery phrases, whatever it is, but kind of learning that yourself. I'm sure you guys get access at least a week before residency. I don't know how each hospital system works, but kind of work on it, play with it yourself. The more efficient and more better you know how to use it, it's just I think it's going to help with efficiency more than anything. I don't think it's going to really help with like your patient care, essentially, as long as you kind of know what you're doing. I don't know if that answers your question.
Kind of, yeah. I guess my main thing was like once you get a hold of knowing how to use the system, you kind of answered it for me. Like it'll go by faster. You'll know how to do things 10 times faster, so you won't spend as much time doing the same thing. So
I mean, that being said, I mean, if you're using Epic, then you have Haiku, right? Your phone. Like, I love that app. Like, you literally can access everything and anything on that one phone alone. Obviously, you can't like pull up the images, but you could put in orders. You can look at all the values. You can pretty much see 90% of everything on your phone alone. So like towards the end of residency, I was just chart checking on my phone on the way to the hospital. But it's just kind of knowing where your resources too, right? So if you guys have Epic, definitely get Haiku, learn how to, you make sure you contact IT and know how to use that right away, because that's a game changer. And then you guys can take pictures of whatever images you guys see in the hospitals. And most attendings will probably make you do that for documentation purposes as well. But yeah.
I wouldn't, you'll learn eventually. You didn't stress too much about it. Everyone goes through a learning curve at the beginning because it's something new, but you'll get it. We rotate at different systems, and most hospitals do. So you're gonna end up picking like multiple MRs. I'd say Epic is the most user-friendly one. If you get to use Epic regularly, it's one of the best ones to use.
Yeah, I've only used Epic, so I don't really know how to use anything else.
Yeah, there's a guy CPRS, that's the VA one, and then we use Cerner as well, like the different healthcare, depending when we're rotating. Epic is really the best. They're all the same though, like you're gonna learn. I wouldn't stress too much about it. You know, starting out there's a learning curve, but you'll pick it up.
Right. I mean, if there aren't any more questions, or our panelists have any final concluding remarks for the new transition of incoming residents. All right. I want to thank Dr. Arif and Dr. Kachlan for taking time out of their day. I know these guys are incredibly busy, and they spent so much time answering all of our questions and things like that. Jazakallah khair. I mean, it was really helpful, and I appreciate all the work. You know, the upper seniors helping out the juniors coming up. You know, more and more MPN doing all of that. It's great. You know, more and more of this. It's how we really advocate for the community, and you know how we make ourselves better, and we can support one another in this way. So I really appreciate everyone taking their time. So if no one has anything else, I think we should be all set to hop off the call.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
All right, assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Thanks for having us. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out.